Okay, so you've probably tried, all the productivity hacks, right? Every goal setting trick in the book, and yet you still feel that familiar grind, always chasing the finish line, maybe missing the actual joy of getting there. What if the way we think about achievement, about learning, even just about living, what if it's fundamentally, well, a bit off? Today, we're diving right into that. We're looking at Thomas M. Sterner's really insightful book, The Practicing Mind. It's a work that kind of pushes back against our modern obsession with speed, with just getting things done. Offers a genuinely fresh take. Our mission for you today, really, is to pull out the core insights from Stirner's work. The things that can help you find real joy and fulfillment, not just when you hit the goal, but in the whole process, the deliberate practice of getting there. Think of it maybe as a blueprint for living a more present, more balanced life, something that could really shift how you approach learning, maybe even your whole outlook. And to guide us through this deep dive, we've got a bunch of sources, some great excerpts from the book itself, detailed summaries. We're going to break down Stirner's big ideas into something, digestible and actionable. Let's jump in. Okay, so Stirner kicks things off with this really powerful but maybe deceptively simple idea. The shift from being product-oriented to process-oriented. It almost sounds like just words, semantics, but it feels like it changes everything, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental. And
Yeah.
what really makes it stick is how he illustrates it right away. He talks about this golf class he took. Most people there just wanted, like, wake up magically skilled golfers. No practice needed, just the skill.
Right, eyes on the prize only.
Exactly. Their focus was totally on the outcome. But Sterner, he found this real deep satisfaction, almost an antidote to stress in the routine itself. He'd pick just one tiny part of the swing, focus only on that. He'd journal about it, repeat it deliberately, not really to ace the next game immediately, but for the inherent value in that focused action. And the interesting thing, almost the paradox, is that his skills improved hugely because he wasn't stressed about the outcome.
Yeah, that golf example really drives home that internal shift. But it makes me think we often use learning and practicing almost as the same thing. Sterner really digs into a key difference there, right? About what true practice actually involves.
He does, and it's a crucial distinction. He defines practice as deliberate and intentional repetition, and with awareness aimed at a specific goal. Those words, deliberate, intentional, they're the key. They demand active engagement, being fully present. Learning, that can happen more passively. You can absorb stuff without really doing it in the same focused way. But practice, that needs conscious involvement, that focus on how you're doing something. That's where the real mastery starts to build.
Sterner's pretty critical of how society focuses so much on results. He points to things like, well, grades in school, making the result the goal, not the learning process itself. But isn't there a counter argument? Don't clear goals sometimes provide crucial motivation? How does his idea fit with that?
That's a really important question. And he's not saying goals are bad, not at all. He's saying when the result becomes the only thing that matters, that's when stress and anxiety often take over, especially in systems like education, like you said.
Right.
If you zoom out, Stirner contrasts this with, say, the Japanese emphasis on quality and process. Think about traditional craftsmanship. A craftsman dedicated to making one perfect thing, rather than churning out lots of okay things. That process focus, he argues, doesn't just lead to better outcomes often, but also, and maybe more importantly, to a deeper satisfaction, because the journey, the craft itself, was valued. So the goal is still there, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's a guide, like a North Star, not a dictator looming over you.
Okay, so if we can sort of mentally detach from that societal pressure for just the outcome, the practical takeaways from this idea start to feel really freeing. It's about consciously redirecting where you put your energy.
Precisely. And these takeaways, they might sound simple on the surface, but applying them is transformative. First, focusing on your present actions. It's not just mindfulness jargon. It's about recognizing that right now is the only place you actually have control. Second, using your big goals as guidance. That frees you from constantly judging yourself based on the outcome. Your daily progress becomes exploration, not just pass-fail.
Okay.
Third, practice with intention and awareness. Really tune in to what you're doing and how you're doing it. And finally, embrace patience and consistency. Mastery is a long game, right? It's a marathon. It's not about ditching goals. It's about changing your whole relationship with them.
This sounds almost too good to be true for the kind of world we live in, the pace of everything. And it's fair to acknowledge, I think, that for a lot of people, specific, tangible goals are really important milestones. They help build commitment, drive progress. So as you think about applying this, maybe consider your own situation, your own experiences, what balance actually works for you. It's probably about integration, not necessarily throwing everything out. All right, so once we start rethinking how we practice, how we see goals, it leads to another big question. What does this do for our inner peace, our mental state? Because if we're constantly chasing external results, like we just talked about, Stirner argues that it fundamentally messes with our perception of patience and ultimately our happiness.
Yeah, he directly links anxiety quite often to this unrealistic chase for perfection,
Mm.
a perfection that's usually defined by external forces, societal standards, those ideal images pushed by advertising.
Mm.
They all create these benchmarks that are often just unattainable.
Mm.
So we're constantly comparing ourselves to something that isn't even real. And that comparison, it's just a recipe for dissatisfaction.
And then Stirner takes it even further. He kind of dismantles our usual idea of perfection with that beautiful flower analogy he uses. But hold on, isn't perfection what we're always told to aim for? How does he challenge that core idea?
Well, he poses that simple question, at what point is the flower perfect?
Mm-hmm.
And his answer is really profound. He says the flower is perfect at every stage, as a seed, as a tiny sprout breaking ground, or when it's in full glorious bloom.
Mm.
True perfection, he explains, isn't some static endpoint. It's limitless, unbounded, and always in a motion of expansion. Seeing it that way as this dynamic, always evolving thing, it frees us. It frees us from chasing an impossible static ideal. It lets us find peace in our own growth, realizing that our perfection is actually in the process of becoming, not in hitting some imaginary finish line.
Okay, so if perfection is fluid like that, it totally changes how we think about patience, right?
Mm.
Impatience, like he says, it's often just a symptom of not being present, just wanting what's next instead of being okay with what's now.
Exactly. And worry itself fundamentally comes from thinking about future stuff, right? Which by definition pulls you out of the present moment. Stirner mentions learning this from his mother, actually, during her illness,
Mm.
that you have to keep revisiting these big ideas, these perspectives. You have to consciously hang on to the clarity and perspective. Otherwise, as he puts it, life steals it away.
Life steals it away, yeah.
And he criticizes things that offer instant gratification.
Mm.
You mentioned self-playing organs. Easy credit because they give you the illusion of accomplishment. But without the real, deep satisfaction that comes from effort, from patience, from the process itself, it's like a shortcut that bypasses the actual reward.
It's worth saying, though, while this mindset shift around patience is incredibly powerful, life is demanding. Modern pressures are real. Work, family, just the pace of things. It can make it tough to fully embrace a purely process-focused life all the time. So as you integrate these ideas, think about your own reality. What shifts feel genuinely doable, genuinely sustainable for you? It's not about ignoring the pressures, maybe just finding moments of presence within them. So, okay, Stirner doesn't just leave us with the philosophy. He gives us actual tools, which is great. And he boils it down to some things that sound almost, well, deceptively simple, practical ways to bring this into daily life.
He starts with something foundational. You cannot change what you are not aware of. Awareness is step one, always. He suggests we need to become like an observer of our own thoughts and actions. Like an instructor watching a student, he says. But the crucial part is without judgment. That non-judgmental observation is key. It helps dial down the negative emotions and really encourages being present. It lets you see clearly what's actually happening.
And our actions, well, they're mostly habits, aren't they? Which can be good or bad news, depending on the habit. But the good news is, Stirner says, what we practice will become a habit. And old ones, they can be replaced. He even points to studies suggesting that repeating something, say about 60 times over 3 weeks or so, can really embed it, create a new neural pathway, a new habit. So we have more power over those ingrained patterns than we might think.
Definitely. And when you are trying to change those habits, that initial discomfort, totally normal, totally expected. The key, he emphasizes, is to focus on the process. Remember that mastery takes time, and try to keep that mind split free of emotional baggage, free of beating yourself up, just realizing you have the power to consciously choose and shape your habits. It's incredibly liberating. It really empowers your growth. It's about that steady consistency, not sudden bursts of effort.
Okay, next up, he gives us these 4 simple but really powerful S words. Simplify, small, short, and slow. My first reaction was kind of like, that's it. But they work together in a profound way, don't they?
They seem simple, but yeah, they're deeply interconnected and reinforcing. So simplify. Break big tasks down. Avoid those overwhelming goals. Instead of clean the entire garage, which feels huge, commit to clean just this one corner. Makes it manageable.
Right.
Then small. Focus on those small, simplified segments. This helps maintain concentration and lets you rack up these little wins, these repeatable successes, builds momentum, builds confidence.
Okay.
Then short. Commit to shorter bursts of focus work, maybe just 45 minutes. This avoids that feeling of being overwhelmed and gives you a real sense of accomplishment when you complete that short burst. You're not trying to do it all at once.
Which ones?
And finally, slow. Now this one is maybe the most counterintuitive today. Working deliberately, slowly. It goes against every thought system we have, Stirner says. But paradoxically, he argues, working slowly actually increases efficiency because you make fewer mistakes. It reduces stress, and it promotes deeper engagement. He found this tuning pianos when he intentionally slowed down. He actually got faster overall and felt way more peaceful doing it. It can turn tedious tasks into something, well, almost meditative.
Okay, and the last piece of this practical toolkit, equanimity and this DOC technique. DOC sounds like something medical.
Huh. Not quite, but it is a powerful tool for, let's say, mental health and self-mastery. Stirner calls equanimity a virtue worth every effort to develop. It's that state of inner calm, of even-temperedness, especially under stress, and it's achieved mainly through non-judgment. Our tendency is to judge everything, right, based on our shifting ideas of perfection, and that constant judgment creates loads of inner turmoil, clouds our thinking. Equanimity helps quiet that noise.
And DOC is the how-to for that.
Exactly, it's the practical application. DOC stands for do, observe.
True.
So you engage in an activity, do. Then you notice the results, you evaluate how you did it, but without judgment. Observe. Just neutrally see what happened.
Yeah.
And then, based purely on those neutral observations, you make adjustments.
Right.
It becomes this continuous calm feedback loop, totally stripped of the emotional drama.
Okay, that makes sense.
He shares a really potent example from his own life. A stressful job opportunity fell through unexpectedly. His immediate reaction could have been anxiety, panic, but instead he consciously stepped back and aligned with the observer, that detached, non-judgmental part of himself. And that allowed him to see the situation objectively, dial down the emotional reaction, and focus clearly on just finding a solution, figuring out the next step. That ability to detach from the immediate emotional wave is so key for better decisions, for mental resilience, especially when things get tough.
You know, what makes Stirner's ideas feel so authentic is that they're clearly not just theories he cooked up. They seem deeply rooted in his own life, his own experiences, like his early music journey. It makes the wisdom feel really grounded.
Absolutely. You get the sense he learned this stuff the hard way,
Yeah.
through trial and error. He talks about quitting guitar early on because he just didn't enjoy the practice. He lacks that understanding. But later, when he got serious about music again and then took up golf, he really learned the value of proper practice mechanics, as he calls them. The how mattered.
Yeah.
He even found that something potentially monotonous, like tuning pianos day in and day out, became this unexpected training ground. It helped him develop patience, learn to get lost in the process itself, allowed for reflection. And he contrasts that focused state with modern multitasking, which he thinks really fragments our attention and robs us of that calm, focused presence that true practice cultivates.
And one of the parts I found really charming and quite insightful is when he talks about learning from children. You know, how they naturally seem to process life, living so much in the present moment, something we adults often spend years trying to get back to.
Right. We can obviously teach kids things like delayed gratification. He tells a sweet story about helping his daughter wait to buy a pogo stick, realizing her intense desire was actually pretty fleeting. But he really emphasizes that kids teach us too. They have this fresh perspective, this emotional honesty that adults, often weighed down by self-consciousness and expectations, can really learn from. And of course, he notes how crucial it is for parents to model healthy ways of coping, healthy ways of practicing life. That helps kids build their own practicing minds.
Yeah, that modeling is key. Ultimately, Stirner leaves us with this really powerful thought to chew on. In every moment of your life, your skills are growing. The question is, in which direction? It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What are we actually practicing moment by moment? What skills are we cultivating intentionally or not?
It's a profound challenge, really, to think about our priorities. He observes that when real crises hit, things like material possessions often fade pretty quickly in importance. What comes to the forefront then? Usually health, relationships, and what he calls spiritual acquisitions.
Spiritual acquisitions.
Yeah, things like inner growth, wisdom, compassion. Those become paramount. Because those, he argues, are the things that truly expand your true self and become part of you forever. He reminds us these aren't exactly new ideas, they're more like eternal truths, things humanity has learned and relearned over centuries. They're foundational to a genuinely fulfilling life.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today, we've really explored how shifting your focus, moving from just the product to valuing the process, can seriously lessen stress and unlock a deeper kind of fulfillment. We journeyed through that idea of perfection being dynamic, always expanding. We saw how awareness is key to changing habits, and we got those practical S words: simplify, small, short, slow. And finally, that calming DOC technique: do, observe, correct, to help cultivate equanimity, that inner balance in pretty much any situation.
Yeah, you really now have this powerful framework, a different way to approach any skill you want to learn, any challenge you face, maybe even just any moment in your day. Instead of getting dragged around by those wild horses of thought, as Sterner puts it, you can aim to be the disciplined rider, guiding your focus, cultivating that quiet, practicing mind that finds real value in every step of the journey.
So here's a thought to take with you this week. Ask yourself, in what small way, what deliberate way can you shift your focus just a little bit? From the destination, maybe, to the journey itself, just for today. And what unexpected bit of joy or maybe a deeper insight might you discover just in that simple shift, in that process itself?